So this is my Facebook. And what we see on Facebook, it's like natural egoism, self-centeredness, it's just me just browsing through it, veganism, it's what you would call, somewhat of a matrix, They show this right here, a lot, it's a lot of this always being shared, and I also stated something earlier, about people that just constantly share, violence and things like that, because when I come on here, it's normally the same, people sharing the same content, violence here, violence there. I'm not sure if you can see it, but let me try to give you that I spoke about monkey see, monkey doism. If you see it, you will be it. If you see it, 9 times out of 10, you mimic what you see. Either you mimic it or you share it. You share in it. Just by seeing it, and because it becomes a common thing. And we are a people of, community. Whether we're in a community together, we're going to talk about that, community and communication, and why a lot of us can't, see eye to eye on certain things, because we have a miscommunication amongst each other, maybe because of our ideologies, certain religions, certain political associations, certain gang associations, but that gets into community and communication. But monkey see, monkey doism. If you see it, you will be it. You see evil, there will be evil. When you share evil, you will hear evil. As you share it, people hear it. As you share it, you also see it. So if you see righteous, again, you will be righteous. You share righteous, you will hear righteous. There's people on this app that may or may not know they are contributing to the ongoing chaos just by sharing certain content. Always sharing violence, so we are constantly hearing violence, constantly seeing violence. So there's constantly being violence. Same people every time I open this app sharing violence, and they wonder why they are seeing so much violence. You, and also you. So it's how we all partake in furthering the things that we see. If we partake in sharing, good information, then we'll all start seeing good information. If we partake in sharing, positive and uplifting information, you'll start seeing that, because there's actually people that's on here that shares that type of information. They share it, but are they sharing it from a sincere place, or are they sharing it from just to be a part of this growing illusion that we call Facebook, or even YouTube? YouTube is all the same. When you're talking about a matrix or a system of confinement that you're stuck inside of. So there's a lot of people that I see, especially that produce spiritual content, and when you see them, you would think that their whole objective is to create better counterparts, whether it's the male counterpart or the female counterpart of whatever race of people they are, or whatever group of people they are. Their primary goal is to create a change in the people, but it's actually having an adverse effect, because the more that is being shared, the more there's being an influx of negativity that I see personally, because I'm amongst the same group of people, and I see it. I see what's being shared, and I see what's not being shared. So when I share it from my standpoint, it's to give you an understanding of certain things, and because others might share it as a means of making themselves seem like they know what they're talking about or a part of something. When you have the new group of people coming out, the new spiritualists, and they all start wearing crystals and start wearing ankhs and start wearing eyes of Horuses and certain spiritual just things that make it seem as though they are spiritual people. And that brings me back to the Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve was afraid and guilty of betraying the decree of God, they covered themselves up. So what I see is that in relation to this, how people are just covering things up because they're afraid of either being identified as something else, so they cover themselves up. And that's with anything. That's with anything that has something to do with a covering. You're covering yourself up because you are either guilty of something or you're afraid of something. So I recently stumbled across a particular person's page, and this was after a matter of fact, this is and this is another thing. This is all, like I said, it's just it's an ongoing thing. This thing never stops. It never stops. Let me see if I could bring this back. But I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see any more of this. So that's how you actually, eliminate a lot of the things that you don't want to see. Once you see it and you don't want to see it anymore, you just, remove it. And it's as simple as that, And I do that, on a consistent basis, But when it comes to, certain people online, that may have a certain title, like I seen this one person, and he said that he was a son of God, and I'm like, okay, so now you're relative to people that consider themselves children of God, and a son of God is, amongst people that you should be amongst as a child of God. If she's a daughter of God, then this is my sister, this is my brother. I speak about that on a lot of or a lot. I speak about that. And so the other day I was just, browsing Facebook, and I saw some content, and it was about the Matrix, and it was a woman, and it said that she was the author of the Matrix and the Terminator, and she was giving you certain information, So when I seen it, I said, hold on, bruh. That's I never knew that it was a woman that was the author of the Matrix. So here you have this particular conversation. I sent to the person. I sent to the person. This is him right here, and you see, oh man, this guy, he's talking about the armor of God, the full armor of God, and you know, it's putting it all together: the sword of the spirit, helmet of salvation, the blessed breastplate of righteousness, shield of faith, the boots of the gospel, the belt of truth, and it goes into detail of what everything is used for. And I was like, okay, so I decided to send this particular person a message, and it crickets. He never responded, never got back. But yeah, so he had this video, and the video was let me see if you can see it. It's right here. It's like the last video that he shared. It says Arthur explained Matrix and the Terminator films. And when I clicked on it and I heard it, what was being said,
The Terminator is the prequels to the beginning of the Matrix. Sarah Connor is actually Neo's mother. So JC, John Connor's Jesus Christ, goes up to be Neo, one and the same in the Matrix. The Matrix is in the future. The Terminator is the past. It's time travel. Past, present, and future time travel. It's the second coming of the Christ. The evolutions of consciousness, man versus the machine. So the machines, the Terminator machines, here the child is going to be born that's going to terminate them in the future when they oppress man. See, it's the man versus the machine. It's God's children versus man's children, which was technology. So the Terminator has to time travel to the past because they know it's Sarah Connor. And they have to kill her, terminate her, so she won't have the baby. And Kyle Reese, he comes from the future to protect her, and he inadvertently gets her pregnant. And he has to go back to the future. And so it's the Immaculate Conception, because now she's pregnant and she fell in love with a man, but did it really happen? Did he exist? And that's what the Matrix is about, to wake you up from the Matrix, to get you out of the illusions and the lies and the ignorance. The red pill is about the blood of the living beings. The black and the blue, the ink is the machines. But this is the humans' world. We are the winners. They are the losers. So people need to exert their free will regardless of what anybody wants. People have to wake up and shift their consciousness so they can create, so they can build. Because you can't stay in the past. Everything must change.
So that's what I've seen, and he shared this. If you look at when it was shared, let me see if I can bring it up.
The prequels to the beginning of the Matrix. Sarah Connor is actually Neo's mother. So JC, John Connor's Jesus Christ, goes up to be Neo, one and the same in the Matrix. The Matrix is in the future. The Terminator is the past.
But he shared this. This was shared on the
it's time travel, past, present, and future time.
That was shared on the April 1st, and I had made the video about God's inheritance on the 30th of March. And in that video, I specified that there's no way that the let me see, it's right here, but I actually specified that
the devil used for evil, God can use for good. So here you see, AI, that, the last few videos that I released, I've been using AI to help me explain certain things. So this isn't AI giving me instructions, this is me giving AI instructions. So you had Elon Musk that brazenly proclaimed that, or stated that by the time something hits the fan, we're going to have a digital God.
Right.
So whatever they're saying is irrelevant because we're going to have a digital God. So, that is a way for, super tech savvy people and super rich people to replace God by creating a digital God. But that's not going to happen as long as the children of God is present in this world. And there's, many children of God. So there's no way that the children of God would ever allow something that's man-made to become God. Not in this world. That would never happen, especially while the children of God is here. So, I wanted to show you how.
So that's the reason why, I felt it was important for me, to reach out to the brother, because that's what I told him. I said, peace, bro. I just seen that reel you shared, and I had no idea the author of The Matrix and the Terminator was a woman, but I checked it out. But I have never saw either movie. I'm not into sci-fi. And she says something I recently said in a YouTube video about the children of God not letting AI be a God as long as we are here. So I've seen a lot of people discuss themselves or indicate that they was children of God. But if that was a brother of mine, he would have responded. I don't know if he see it or not, but we are always open to receive brothers, especially if they come in a certain form. They may not come in the same form, they may not come under the same banner that you come under, but they may actually be who they say they are. And that's what I wanted to get into, is because as long as we're divided, we're not going to be able to stand. And we have so many things that divide us as opposed to what unifies us. And what unifies us should be stronger than what divides us. If it's our own way of living, if that's what divides us, maybe it should be our spirit that unifies us, and our spirit should override our way of living that divides us. And this goes into community. It's the reason why Dick Gregory, when he stated that we don't have any community, black people don't have community, and that's the God honest truth, is because we are all divided, amongst ourselves, with the haves and the have-nots, the gangsters and the regular people, the workers, and the Christians and the Muslims and the Israelites. We have so many things that divide us as a people that we would never be able to consider ourselves being a community of people. So that's just what black people. This is the reason why we have to get out of allowing ourselves to be classified as anything, because that's the way that you can be placed in subclasses. Once you are classified, then they have subclasses, and then they have other classes. So now you're dealing with all sorts of separation and disassociation just because you have a miscommunication. So like I said, I stay out here amongst the Jewish people, the Jewish people, and they actually have a community. They have stores that they own, they have banks that they own, they have everybody being who they are in their community. And being that they have that community, it's more unified than anything that any other community that I've ever seen, and I stay amongst them, so I'm able to relate, like, yo, these people are, they have an actual community. I've been out here for maybe 10, 15 years, and I have never seen a fight amongst them, never seen a domestic dispute amongst them, never a police at their house, never. It's all that's what you would call a people that has communication, and it's evident because they are using whatever structure they have to maintain themselves, as opposed to other communities or other groups of people. They are always scattered amongst each other, and you're not comparing this and comparing that to that. But what I'm saying is that if you know that your people's in trouble, and they are in a certain loop which would be considered a matrix. They're in an illusion, of self-centeredness, of trying to accumulate as much currency as they can, and fashion, and it's all an illusion that's keeping them from becoming a solid unit, a unified group of people, and to create a community amongst themselves. These are things that they're doing to create disharmony amongst themselves, and you see it. If I'm not one that didn't see it and understand it, I wouldn't be able to see it and speak on it. But I see it and understand it, that this is what's creating disharmony, and the other day someone spoke about or came on one of my videos. I believe it was the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, when they was talking about the new earth and the new heaven, and they told me that this topic but you understand that spirits are being felt not only in the presence, but even on these lines. So everything is spiritual. You can feel a spirit even on this line, even on these apps, whether it's a video, whether it's on a comment on YouTube, whether it's a comment anywhere. You can feel the spirit of a person there. So the spirit that I felt was, they may have had a name that said, they was their soul was beautiful or something like that, but no, that's not. That was the contrary. People don't try to discourage people that are doing things from a genuine standpoint, and try to belittle them. And that only allows you to know, not only puts you out there as one that, son, why are you even watching my videos? Why are you even tuned in? If this is something that you already are aware of, why even make a comment on something that somebody else may not be aware of? And it's coming from another perspective. If somebody's giving you their input from another perspective, which they may have a better way of seeing it and showing it and displaying it, then why feel the need to try to discourage a person from commenting or discussing certain things? That's not regurgitating knowledge, and it's not deeper than regurgitating. When everything that you see is regurgitating. How many people don't had videos about the third eye and chakras, and how many videos of them have you jumped on and said, hey bruh, everybody's talking about third eyes and chakras, everybody's talking about crystals, everybody's talking about tarot, everybody's talking about prophetic word. How many videos of those people have you jumped on and said, hey, everybody's doing that, why don't you do something different? And it's a lot deeper than just regurgitating. How many people have you actually have you? Nah, you haven't. Just single me out. Why? Why me? What's so different about me that makes you want to single me out? It's not like I got what I mean, the world behind me. It's not like you're the most popular person. But why I feel the need to, interject and comment and try to discourage somebody who can't be discouraged? You know, why would you want to do that? But that's another story for another story. Like I told you, I don't need the world to follow me. But what I need to do is put the information out that I need to put out. That's what I need to do. You know, so whatever everybody else need to do, I'm not sure. Everybody has their own role they have to play and their own part they have to play. So I'm not sure, what that's about. But it doesn't bother me. That's why I commented what I commented. But we go back into community. Community and communication. We have a miscommunication amongst ourselves, so we have discommunication amongst ourselves. So we don't have any kind of community at all. Communication. So without communication, there can be no community. And commune, and this is something that you use to establish connection. You use community to establish connection. You use communication to establish connections to create a community. And this is, again, AI, giving us, information that, we may overlook or we may not have a certain understanding of. And because you're able to use it, to help us understand certain things, this is where you are not going to be, let's say, replaced by it, but be helped by it. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show you that interview with Sophia Stewart. And there was also, a lot of people saying that Sophia Stewart was lying about having any parts in the creation of the Matrix and the Terminator films. But the way that she explained it, I have never heard anyone explain it from that point of view. And that only allows me to know that maybe she has authored it, and because I know that a lot of things were stolen, especially from women, in this reality, and authored by men. I know that for a fact, that a lot of things were stolen from her, from a female, from women, and they also get women to help and assist them in their thievery. So yeah, she could have had the idea, the concept, and the storyline stolen from her and reauthored by someone completely different, and they probably wouldn't have been able to give you that type of breakdown of what the Matrix and the Terminator films was about. So you have to understand, she knew it, in the way that she was explaining it. It only indicates that she knew that story intimately, not from me watching it and observing it, but because I'm breaking it down from the way that I actually created this story. So yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to touch on about that interview, because I'd never even heard of her before. And I've never even, like I said, I never seen those movies because I'm not into science fiction. I'm not into sci-fi. I'd rather watch like a comedy, or I'd rather watch, a horror movie. I'd rather watch something completely different. But science fiction and action movies and stuff like that, they don't really, pique my interest. So that's the reason why to this day I haven't watched The Matrix or haven't watched Terminators. But because of the breakdown that she give you, would make you want to go and watch it, with complete focus. You want to focus to see if anything's in there that you may find beneficial. Especially when you know that there's an ongoing battle between the children of God and the children of man. The children of man, which becomes the machine, and the children of God. And it's not ironic or a coincidence. It's what you would call synchronicity that you just spoke about. God never had to. God being replaced would never by a computer would never happen as long as the children of God is here. But you have to be mindful that all children aren't, good children. I spoke about, one time that, somebody amongst my father's children, which, not to even speak on that, but I've stated that, a child could be against you. And just because you are a child doesn't mean that you are, absolutely like the parents. Some people's children are easily bought and are able to betray you, And I wanted to get into the what it means to have community and communication. So this is again an AI overview. Effective communication is crucial for building and strengthening communities, fostering understanding, trust, and participation, and ultimately leading to a more cohesive and engaged community. This is what it takes to bring forth a strong community of people, effective communication. But once we establish different languages and different code of ethics or ways of doing things, this creates disassociation amongst ourselves. So it prevents us from being a community of people. Again, we have so many things that separate us from, you got the Bloods and you have the Crips. How can they come together in a community if they are at odds with each other because of something as minute as a color? How can, or a neighborhood or a certain block that they come from, or a certain city that they come for, or a certain way that they talk, or a certain way that these people talk. So this would prevent them from establishing themselves as a community because they're divided, and that's what churches and denominations and other religious groups. How can you come together when you are divided by certain beliefs or certain ways that you do this or certain ways that they do that? There's always going to be division until we can remove those barriers and then come together as a collection of people, as a collective of people. So here's a more detailed look at the relationship between community and communication. Why communication matters for communities. Building trust and relationships. Open and honest communication builds trust between community members and leaders, which is essential for a thriving community. Facilitating participation. Clear communication ensures that community members are informed and have opportunities to participate in decision-making and activities. It facilitates participation. You want every member of the community to be a participant in the community. Not just the elders, but the young as well as the elders. So in a lot of black communities that I've seen, it's always the elders that are the decision makers and the ones that bring forth any kind of decision that's going to affect or impact the community in general. So most elders in black communities are associated in some form of a church or a fraternal order, namely, Freemasons, or maybe Eastern is one of them. But these are what you would call your elders. And if you're making decisions based on the ways that are given, the ways that you're instructed to give them, it's not to benefit the community, but to benefit either a religion, a certain church, or a certain fraternal order, which doesn't contribute anything to improving communities, but it has something to do with improving these institutions that these elders are a part of. So that's what I see in these particular communities. So clear communication ensures that community members are informed and have opportunities to participate in decision making and activities, addressing concerns and conflicts. Effective communication provides channels for community members to voice their concern and resolve conflicts constructively. And that's one thing that we don't have in these communities. When there's a growing number of, crime, black on black crime, financial problems, there's no conflict resolution in these communities. It's always left up to something outside of the community to repair or to address those problems. And this is why you're not able to constructively build a community, because it's always something outside of these communities that need to be built. It's always something outside of those communities that have to address the problems in those communities, and promoting understanding and unity. Shared communication can help people understand each other's perspectives and foster a sense of unity and common purpose. Shared communication. That's why I told them, when you share righteousness, there will be you will hear righteousness. If you see righteousness, there will be righteousness. So in the community, what's shared amongst people is what helps them understand each other's perspectives. So if the people in these communities, is sharing the common goal of getting financially established and materialistically established, then that's the communication that's shared amongst a people. Materialism, self-interest, and this is what's shared. Because there's this tribe. I believe it's Hadzi tribe, and I believe they're in Tanzania, and they're in a community where they all eat together. They all they all do things in a group setting. Everything is a community. That is what you would call a community. Everything that they have, they got collectively. So they all have a common goal and a common interest, and you see the way that they are at peace with each other, because they're all on the same level. They're not on just the same level, but they're all on the same page. So that is what's the reason why they understand each other. They have a certain level of understanding, and promoting understanding and unity. And what we have now is supporting community development. Effective communication is vital for planning, implementing, and evaluating community initiatives and projects. Effective communication. That is important, for planning, planning how we want these communities to be ran, how we want our children to be raised, and implementing them and evaluating community initiatives and projects, and what we can do inside the community to further these initiatives, and then put these projects into place. So that is what you get from supporting community development. You have to develop a community as opposed to allowing a community to develop on its own. It would take planning and implementing, evaluating community initiatives and projects. But ensuring transparency and accountability. Open communication ensures that community members are aware of decisions and actions taken by leaders and organizations. Again, when I just stated that most of our elders belong to our leaders, which will be the elders, are associated with things that's outside of the community, and they're secretive, and sometimes they're secretive in their dealings with those organizations. But if they had open communication, this would further create more trust amongst their people, amongst the community, than it would distrust. So that's one way for you to establish strong communication in communities, by ensuring transparency and accountability. Strategies for effective community communication. Choose the right channels. Utilize a variety of communication channels, meetings, newsletters, social media, online forums, to reach different audiences and preferences. And this is what we have now. The community that we are creating, like this is the reason why I stated the new earth and the new heavens, is because the people responsible for bringing forth this new earth and this new heaven, they are using a social media, but they are not, they're not being, it's not effective, because you would see it unfold right before your eyes. But what I'm seeing is, I see the ongoing knowledge and information that's being put out, which is actually being just repeatedly, just people learning something and then wanting to be the first ones to be seen as putting out this information. They're not being, it's not getting to the core of the people. It's not getting to the heart of the people, but it's just scratching the surface. So it's being a superficial form of adopting what's being given to them. So it's so much of it that it's becoming a redundance of just seeing it, to the point where it's not even being absorbed. It's just being spewed, but it's not being digested. It's actually being regurgitated and not being digested. That's a form of regurgitation. So we have a obligation that you have to reach your audience, with the preferences, with their and preferences, because of the way that you communicate and the channels that you're using to communicate. Like I said, you have meetings, you can have newsletters, social media, online forums, and this becomes a database of information, and that information is what you use to communicate with a community of people. So you be responsive and accessible. Respond promptly to questions and concern, and make sure that community members have easy access to information and resources. And responsive and accessible. So when I just stated that there was a brother, he called himself a son of God, and when I reached out to him, he wasn't responsive, and by not being responsive, he made himself inaccessible. By you putting yourself out there, you make yourself accessible. When you have a platform, you have a page, you have a Facebook page, you have any kind of social media, you make yourself accessible. Now when people reach out to you, this is the reason why I told one of my people that comments on my video that, son, give me your information so I can respond to you. You give me your email and I'm gonna reach out to you, because you have to be responsive and also accessible to as long as you make yourself accessible and you're responsible and you're responsive. Now you're able to create that trust in that communication. But you have to encourage two-way communication. See, encourage two-way communication creates opportunities for community members to share their ideas, feedback, and concerns. It's a two-way thing. This is where you have self-centeredness and self-ambition come into place, where it's not a two-way thing. It's a one-way thing where, I'm gonna put this information out. Don't talk to me. I'm not going to you comment. I'm not going to respond to you. I don't see you. And I see that a lot. On a lot of people's platforms, they don't establish two-way communications, and that's something that people have to eventually realize, that hold on, this is the two-way thing. If I put this information out, I have to be responsive and accessible. I can't feel high and mighty to the point where, if people are looking at me for a response and I'm not able to respond to them, then I'm not cut for this. This is what you would call self-centeredness. And if a person shares the information that you share, then you should never feel any kind of way about that, because you put that information out to be shared. Why would you want to be the owner and the author of your information if the information that you're putting out is for people? So that's why I don't mind when people take things and reword things, or try to steal content, things that you don't spoke about. People might see it and speak about it, and they may even get a wide audience, a wider audience. And that's what the purpose is. That's what you want to happen. Don't you really want to help people, or do you want to help yourself? Do you want to help yourself, or do you really want to help people to get it? And even though everybody might not get it, if it's only one person amongst the ones that get it, then that's all that's the effect that it has, just that one person. And be inclusive and respectful. Ensure that all community members feel valued and heard, regardless of their background or perspective. And here we have, ensure that all community members feel valued and heard, regardless of their background or perspectives. Again, that's something amongst a group of people that has caused this unity or miscommunication and a lack of unity, is because of the background or perspective that a person may have. So we don't want to not understand this, because this is very important. Be inclusive and respectful, to ensure that all community members, no matter what their background is or perspective, all community members feel valued and heard. So like I said, there's some that feels high and mighty and look down, that sit up high and look down low on people. Use visual and multimedia. Use visuals and multimedia. Incorporate visuals, videos, and other multimedia elements to make communication more engaging and accessible. So if people might not be able to show up at a meeting, you have video conferences, you have multimedia outlets, and all sorts of ways to engage and make yourself more accessible. Personalized communication, tailor messages to specific audiences and interests to ensure that they are relevant and engaging. You have to tailor messages specific to audiences and interests to ensure that they are relevant and engaging. So when you're talking about your community, it's the things in your community that's relevant to you, and it's engaging. It helps the people to engage because it's relevant to them. You know, so like I said, in a lot of communities, especially like in Paterson, New Jersey, there's a lot of violence. So what's relevant and engaging in that particular community is, the violence that they see. So they are violence is relevant to them. So they'll share a lot of violence that I see personally. They share a lot of that because it's engaging and it's relevant. And the more that is violent, the more that they're going to engage, and the more that they engage in it, the more relevant it's going to be. And the more relevant it is, the more engaging though that type of content is, and like I said, the less you see of it, the less there will be of it. So because that's what it is out there, that's what you see out there. So you have fact check and be transparent. Ensure that all information is accurate and transparent, and be open about the decision making process. So fact checking and transparency. You have to be transparent, and that goes into something that somebody shared one time, and this is amongst the people that I see, sharing content that may not know that they're negatively impacting their community by just the content that they share. So it was a fake news that was shared one time by a particular person amongst me. So I told the person, like, yo, you have to make sure, this stuff is accurate before you share it. And then they went and found out that it was inaccurate, and by the time they realized that, they had already shared it. So fact checking is very important, as far as you trying to create a form of transparency, and that's what it means to have a community, to be in a community of people. And I wanted to say that because we see the spiritual community, we see the black community, we see Jewish community, we see all sorts of communities, and then we see how one community thrives while one community struggles, and what you should use to further or establish a stronger community is sometimes a better communication amongst each other, and establishing that communication amongst each other without limiting or excluding people because of their background or their perspective, where it states that you should be inclusive and respectful. A lot of people are disrespectful of others because of their background. Can two walk together unless they agreed? How come we can see Bloods and Crips together in certain areas, but then they're at odds in this area? How come Jews and Muslims can be together over here, but yet they're warring over here? So it's all about being respectful and inclusive, regardless of a person's background or their perspective. So I wanted to share that because, like I said, I stumbled across that that interview with Sophia Stewart, who was completely, unheard. I've never heard of that person, but then after you went and researched, who she was, and if she was the author of The Matrix and the author of The Terminator, you would wonder, how did that, go over your head? And I believe that she authored a book, and those particular movies was based on that book that she had wrote. And that's one thing that tends to happen. People like to you know take people's body of works and re-author them, and then author and put their own name on it. I've seen that happen on numerous accounts, especially online. You would see that this is just regurgitation of information. So that's something that if you're going to be a community of people, you should take into consideration about how you should use effective communication and be inclusive of each and every person that's in that community, not just your group of people or that group of people, but you should be inclusive of everybody, not just the elders, but the younger as well, because the youngers will be the recipients of the elders' place. So, at some point in time. So these are things that I felt like sharing because it needed to be shared, and and if we are all to be if we are children of God, then the more that we are at odds with each other, the less likely we are to carry out the will of God. Or if God wants us to be in community, be in a community and be in a communication with each other, then that is something that we should also take into consideration. Why would we be disassociated with each other when we should be actually associating with each other? But yeah, I just felt like sharing that. So peace.